joining me on the podcast today.
All right, Mimi, thank you for having me back. How have you been?
Oh my goodness. I have been really tired, to be honest. I'm just going to throw it all out there, but so happy to be talking to you. Last time we spoke, we actually had Chip Zarsky with us. So it's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while. It has. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, that was since like the sadness of Sex Criminals ending. And, I was
Oh,
like
okay.
crying and
Yeah, it's
boohooing
almost
with
been
you
it's
all.
been like a year, right? Okay.
Yeah, which is crazy because over the first pandemic break, because now it's like, what pandemic break are we in? But over the first one we talked like a few times because you joined me and Greg one
Right,
time,
right,
and
right, right.
yeah, and then we had our own conversation. So yeah, we are way due, sir.
We're overdue. Yeah, right.
We are overdue.
Hi.
How's the family, first of all?
Hanging in. Kids are thrilled to be back in school, and
Yeah.
we are working on getting our daughter vaccinated. Now that all the green lights are given, she's particularly needle phobic, so we're trying to implement that. Not so I think that's an imminent event for us, which will be super great. But no, like back in school and healthy and happy and
Mhm.
turns out pandemic real bad for little brains. Probably bad for big brains too.
True.
But yeah, so they're doing great.
Okay, that's so good to hear because I know you're right. For the young ones, it was such a disruption, and I think just having that vaccination just makes you feel like a little bit of a sigh of, okay, like there's a sense of normality, and not that we don't have to be careful, but at least we're not in major fear. And
Right.
it's just been, as you know, I teach kung fu, and like just seeing the little kids and just like, all right, everyone stand on your X, which is 20 feet apart, and having a little less of that stress would be nice for sure. But I'm very glad they're back in school and enjoying that. Of course, right now we're talking, you and I are actually speaking on the holiday break, right? It's Thanksgiving week, and so I'm sure that has a lot of things to do. I know Halloween's huge in your household.
Yeah,
I always
Halloween's big. Yeah, my son is upstairs, but yeah, it's break. My son is upstairs playing video games. My daughter is at horse camp, so that's
Ooh, I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and
I
horsemanship has been a thing she's discovered here over the summer.
I love that. I went on a horse for the first time in maybe like 20 years or something. I was in the Catskills, and we
Mhm.
were, out in nowhere. We're like, we're gonna go on a horse. My husband's first time ever on a
Oh, wow.
horse. So he's a city boy, born and raised in Brooklyn. I think he went on a donkey when he's in the DR once, seeing family, but I don't think that quite counts. So yeah, I
A
love
bumpier.
horses. I'm not like an equestrian or anything. I just love them. See, look, I
Yeah,
have a horse on my wall and
you do.
everything.
It's true. Yeah.
I'm the year of the
Uh,
horse.
it's
So
been it's been interesting that she's a kid, she's 11, but like not
yeah.
even like mucking stables dissuades her. Like the whole horsemanship of it really
Yeah.
engages her, and she got bit. One of the horses like bit her the other day because like
No way.
she was given treats to one,
Cubes or
and the other
something.
kind of poked his head around and like bit her shoulder to get her attention or something. And even that didn't like dissuade her. She's like gotten right back up on the horse, as it were. So it's been cool to
Well,
see her kind of.
to Louise she's pretty intense. So I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see her taking to it. So that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so many things to congratulate you on. One is, of course, your beautiful family, as always. But man,
Take no
like,
responsibility for that, but thank you.
wait, that's not true. That's so not true. Two Eisner Awards this year, Hawkeye coming out, all sorts of things on the horizon, comics galore. I mean, wow, you've been quite busy, sir.
Right, I didn't. It's. I didn't. I'm not supposed to be. It just looks like it. I think. Uh, uh,
It's all
like
optics.
it really sort of did didn't do too much over the last year, other than like kid stuff, because Kel's schedule, my wife was incredibly busy,
Yeah.
and I was at a place when kind of the pandemic came down that everything was wrapping up. So I kind of was house dad and like helped school and errands
Mhm.
and stuff, and sort of wasn't really doing too terribly much. So it's just by fluke and happenstance, timing, and probably a couple supply chain issues that make it look like I've been way busier than I actually, or at least it's not that I've not been busy. It's not been like public, like I don't know. It's weird timing. Let's just
Grinding out, right? Like it makes it look like you've literally been like not sleeping and just putting out creative content. But like,
or I
so
just have no idea how to gauge what that actually looks like. So who knows?
it
Just
could be a bit
thinking
of both.
eagerly, "Oh, maybe this isn't what normal people are like."
What's normal anyway?
I clearly have no idea.
Oh my gosh. No, but it's funny because you and I have kind of played phone tag or
Mm,
email tag, have you, back and forth, like, hey, I gotta get you back on the show. It's been a while. And you had some things coming out. And then fast forward, and Oscar and I, my husband, were watching commercials because all we do is watch trailers. We actually don't seem to watch any shows ever. We just end up watching, like, what will we watch? It's kind of a,
mm.
and then by then it's time to go to sleep, so we never see anything. But of course the Hawkeye trailer drops, and we
Yeah.
both jump, like literally, like we were, slumped at the end of the night because we only get half an hour of TV in a day, and we like literally sit up and yell fraction as soon as the Hawkeye trailer drops, because we see the Russians in tracksuits, we see the
Yeah, no,
dog, we are just like, our minds are blown. I immediately text you and you're like, I can't really say anything quite yet, but we are, this will air after, of course, that first episode drops. And
two
man,
of
I
the
was
two are dropping
too
night. Yeah, so you get to watch episodes 1 and 2
excellent.
in one go. Yeah.
Yes. So, and I'm not sure you remember this because the first time I met you, you were in Rose City
Mhm.
Comic-Con. And the first thing I said to you was, oh my gosh, I really love Hawkeye and you're so funny. And I was so embarrassed. Like, I was like, what am I saying?
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, as much now as then, more now. Thank you. Now that you've actually spoken to me, you've not changed your.
Oh, please.
Thanks.
So yeah, so it's super exciting when I texted
Yeah.
you and you're like, I may or may not have had something to do with this. And I'm like, oh, you're
Right.
100% all over this, obviously. So, and then of course I've been digging up info, and apparently there's like a Seth Meyers connection, and I'm like, my mind's a little bit
Right.
blown. So just tell me how all this played out.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm credited as consulting producer
Okay.
on it. But I was brought in when the show was, yeah, I sort of found out in fact, I think I was doing a signing for the first Jimmy Olsen issue with Steve
Mm,
Lieber here in Portland, and it was like during San Diego,
okay.
someone came up and showed me on their phone that they had announced the Hawkeye show with David's logo. So I had a suspicion. But yeah, so I was contacted and to sort of listen and give feedback and thoughts on what the show was and where they were going and how it was working and what I thought about it. And they were using the book that me and David and Annie and everybody else did it as a kind of North Star, I guess, for
Hmm.
where they wanted to go with it. And they had sort of the story blends and merges the Hawkeye of the movies and a lot of kind of the character as we experienced him, I guess, right? Whatever you call it, whatever we, like, so it's got a lot of it's a really nice blend. They found it very, I know I'm also on record as kind of, I love the family back home. I love Linda Cardellini and the kids. Like I love that in Avengers 2. I thought that was the way to make him exactly how I saw him. So it celebrates kind of everything that came before and a lot of the stuff that we did, and then the sort of Kelly Thompson, Tiff Meyer, all these other incredible writers and creators after me. It's always a working in the Marvel universe, regardless whether it's comics or the movies, is like being in a relay race. You hold the baton for a little while and then you hand it to somebody else, and like these folks liked it when we held the baton, so that's cool. But yeah, so it's, I don't even, like, it was before the pandemic was the first time I was out and sort of met everybody and talked and listened and got scripts and read, and then just sort of throughout the pandemic would kind of get more and more and more. In parallel to this, uh, 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 yeah, so I had Seth Meyers is a big comic fan
Yes.
and had me on his show, and that was crazy to go on a talk show about comic books. But Myers does another show called Documentary Now,
Okay.
that is frequently it was directed by a guy named Rhys Thomas, and Rhys Thomas was one of the directors that was being brought in to do that. And so Seth had kind of put Reese and I in touch, and Reese really kept me in touch while they were in motion and working. I was supposed to go out. I was supposed to be a tracksuit, but between kind of pandemic and we got a puppy. He's a very big puppy, and as busy as
I've
my wife
seen
was,
it.
I just
I've
couldn't
seen
travel.
Puppy.
Horse. He's a horse, really. He's a pony. He's a pony. But yeah, so I suppose, but like, I was going to be a tracksuit, which I was really, really, really looking forward to. But
Yes, that would have been amazing.
we'll just have to everybody watch it like 10 times, so there'll be a sequel, and I can go be a tracksuit in the second one, I guess.
Yes, you definitely will. I'm all about it. I've heard, amazing things about this. I am super psyched, and I know if it has any bit of inspiration from the work that you all did in the comic, that it's going to be fantastic. And so I'm very excited.
Thank you. I saw the first two the other night at a premiere event, which was deeply surreal. And I feel very red. I feel that they took, there are pieces of me and David and Annie and Javier and Francesco and Chris and Jesse and Lieber were all, and Hollingsworth too. Like even there's even down to like it's the entire team has really been kind of honored in this work. Or like I said, I feel very red. I know they were really looking at it. It feels very flattering, right? It's like I said, deeply surreal, very, very weird to be on a red carpet where all of Hollywood Boulevard is done up with targets and purple, and it's, it's super nuts. And they would really steer into the Christmas thing, and we kind of did some stuff around Christmas, and it's like a holiday movie. It's like a big Marvel superhero holiday movie. Like that's the other, like, so it's they're real crazy.
Yes, it's so
Yeah, and I
exciting.
think Reese did an amazing job, and Bert and Bertie, the other directors, I've only seen kind of clips from their stuff, and like it looks fantastic. And yeah, deeply weird, deeply surreal week.
Yeah, and it's funny because we all, as comic book fans and readers, of course, are always looking and interested and fascinated by when the characters come to life on screen, but not just a character like a superhero such as Hawkeye, but we've seen so many iterations of superheroes, but there are very, very specific ones in specific arcs, like what you've done with that character. And like if that even comes through in a small percentage, I know it's going to be great because it's an interesting thing. Like everyone knows I'm a comic book fan. And while I do like my superheroes, that's not my favorite to read. Like I enjoy reading things about like where I don't really know what's going to happen at all. I have no idea about the character, whereas a superhero character has, backstory. Everyone knows about Superman, right? And so Hawkeye for me was a little bit like that. Like I kind of knew who he was, but not enough to where it like ruined the
That's
magic
the
for me about the story.
that's the appeal, right? That's the appeal of the character, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then what you brought to it was just like my mind was just totally blown, and I didn't it was just really, really awesome in general ways. But like I was just super, super excited. And so I know that that dimension of character that you write him in, like if that's even like remotely displayed, it's gonna be freaking awesome. And so, like I said, my husband and I like jumped up, like just seeing images we knew already. We're like, fraction. It was so obvious.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's really, really crazy,
So cool, so cool. Well, congratulations. This is
Thank you.
really it's really great. And it's great when it's done well. I mean, I know I haven't seen it yet, but I feel pretty positive because in all honesty, Marvel doesn't really screw a lot of things up like other
Yeah.
studios perhaps, and other things that come out. And so I feel like at the end of the day, we know it's going to be super entertaining. We know the cast is great, and the sets and the costumes. I mean, we know it's going to be well done. So
Yeah, even
I'm going
boy,
to
there's a
prematurely
level.
congratulate you.
I'll take all the credit. Everything that worked was me. Not even David and Annie, etc. It was all me. Everything that worked was just me. Everything that was wrong was everybody else. Why didn't they listen? No, even there's a level of fidelity and detail that, like, I look in Hollywood, everybody thinks you're a genius and everybody loves everything that you do, right? It's sort of it's compliment and praise is so overused, it's entirely devalued, but like, oh man, there's levels of attention that was being paid that's like, you don't do that if you're a tourist, you know what I mean? So if you're super duper duper hardcore, there's you'll feel your faith will be rewarded, I guess. Like
Nice.
little things down to like the way like the apartments are decorated and stuff like that. Like it's like, oh my God, that's really were trying to put as much of the book we all did up on the screen, which is
Yeah.
pretty nuts. And
And
to like to meet like I met a couple of tracksuit guys and they were fantastic, just
mhm.
hilarious, great, and they like had the time of their life because it was so completely ridiculous and like they self-organized like on set. The tracksuits like organized how the gang would have worked and all this, like how all
Yeah.
these fun stories they were telling me, and like it was great. It was really fun.
Yeah, and like just the process itself, I know that you've consulted on things, you work on things
Mhm.
and everything, but this seemed pretty involved because of course it's a series. Like, what's that back and forth like timeline wise and like work wise? Is it very, because I know as a creator sometimes there's big highs and big lows and whatnot,
Sure.
but with this there's probably time constraint. Like, here's a script, get it back to us by
Yeah,
this.
yeah, definitely. And there the thing is there are all these other parts of the machine that are waiting to go that they can't start building sets until they know what sets you're going to need, and they can't start organizing when they're going to be on those sets until they know how many times do we come back here. And they'll shoot things all out of order, and like, oh well, we're going to need this set for episodes 1, 2, 4, and 6, so we got to shoot all that here. And then and that requires a level of, so there's a like the script is really the roadmap for the production, so there's always a rush, but like it was truly consulting. Like it wasn't for me to say, does it have to be an arrow or whatever,
Mhm.
like it, but rather I was just giving feedback and just sort of talking about what my approach to the characters were and what I thought about them, or what it was really just giving feedback for them to take or leave. And I certainly feel listened to.
Mhm.
I can see what I detect and sense as my own kind of input into the process, but like the writers were the writers, the directors were the directors. I
Mhm.
was just a guy giving notes, and that's like being the loudest fan on the sidelines, in a lot of ways. So because ultimately that was sort of right. All this is, because I never had anything like, I never had, not that I ever would have said this anyway, but like the Hawkeye wouldn't do that kind of note, Clinton wouldn't do that, Kate
Right.
wouldn't do that,
Okay.
was never like they were in tune with what they were, like the whole, like I never felt like you guys don't understand what I was. It was never like that. It was always just you know character stuff, right, and sort of backstory stuff,
Mhm.
and how and where and what what my research did, and what I knew and what I understood, that kind of thing, and like take or leave, or like alts, right, like like little dial, maybe this line, maybe that line, something like this, something like that, like little jokes. um, Especially with Kate, and part of that was just it felt a little bit like getting to write Kate again, so just to kind of suggest
Mhm.
nonsense for Kate to say was cool. But no, like I said, I from the minute the process started felt it was so clear that they were, everyone involved, was paying homage to the book and was trying to honor it, and like it was always in great hands,
Mhm.
and yeah, everything that works about it was me, and just me and no one else, entirely
I
me.
mean, so does that mean, let's say, season two, your tracksuit, but does that also mean perhaps like, is there a chance that you may get to write a little bit on these
I have no
things
idea.
or
I have no idea how those decisions get made, or
right?
I don't know.
Would you be interested?
I Yes and no. Um, and the no is maybe more interesting than the yes, but the no would be like, would I, going back to these characters, even if it's in like a medium I hadn't used would it diminish the work? Would it somehow, would it be boring? Would it be repetitive? Would it be, I don't know. You know, it's like I would have to think and talk to the producers and see, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know that there would be a sequel series. I mean, if hopefully in success, right? But like, I don't know. It would depend on what the directive was and where we were going and what the thinking was. Because my greatest fear would be diminishing the work that so many people love, that I love doing, that I love the experience of making it, and everyone that worked on it with me. Like, and the worst thing would be to do something that made them think like, oh, that kind of sucked. You know, so
yeah,
so I don't know.
like it's kind of here already, you know,
Yeah.
at this place, and you just kind of, it's like, don't want to
Yeah.
poke the
I would,
bear.
I would rather ruin a Marvel character that I'm unfamiliar with by
Okay.
writing a lousy TV
Makes
show
sense.
than retroactively somehow spoil. I don't know. I think, you know, like it'd be, I don't, I
I
haven't really
got it.
thought about it before. I'm just kind of thinking about it out loud. So maybe
Of
this is all
course, of
ridiculous.
course.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
listen, if
no.
Marvel calls and says, "Do you want to write the sequel?" Of course, but there'd be a,
And I have every confidence it would be just
only
great.
if it doesn't
So,
suck. Only if it doesn't. Only if I can figure out a way to do it that wouldn't suck.
right, right. Well, generally speaking, you have a pretty good track record of not sucking when it comes to writing. So I feel pretty confident. Now,
Reese and I
completely.
got each other going pretty good at the when we were hanging out the other night. We were getting each other pretty spun up. So
There you
hopefully,
go.
hopefully, yeah. Maybe you know, it's funny. It's so Christmassy. It's so
Yes,
Christmassy.
it feels Christmassy.
Like it's kind of brilliant in that way, because it's like, how do you carve a different identity for all those different shows and all the different movies, and they're all kind of this one massive piece. And something about the Christmas of it, it's really about a guy trying to get everything on his to-do list crossed off so he can get home for Christmas. Like it is, oh, it's a small ball. That's what passes as a small ball story, right? Like all the Hawkeye issues were small ball stories, right? I need to go buy some tape. I need to go I gotta do, right? It's all little tiny done in one kind of stories. And this is a very, oh yeah, right now it's this guy trying to get his Christmas stuff done. Like, oh right, that's how it will be completely independent. You're not going to think you're accidentally watching an episode of Loki. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any confusion.
Yeah. So that was fun to see. Like, oh wow, this is really, and two, like being part of like a Disney Christmas content array. Like, oh, this is going to play every December for the rest of my life.
Pretty much.
Which is nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole Disney thing as well. Like that's it. It's like
they know how to market Christmas
immortalized.
stuff for sure. They know how to make it. And that was the other, like the on Hollywood Boulevard outside of the theater, like it wasn't just the carpet and the Hawkeye designs and like sort of the costumes from Daddy and Nanny and the design work and stuff, but like they had Christmas trees and inflatable Santa and fake snow machines.
Wow.
So even as a kind of mild Los Angeles night, but done up entirely like Christmas, but like fake Christmas, like Hollywood Christmas. It was very, like I said, deeply
Very
surreal,
Hollywood.
deeply surreal.
Very, very Hollywood. Oh my gosh. Well, it is all very exciting and completely unrelated. Like you're the third guest on this show that's also been on the Seth Meyers show. So by some weird algebraic equation, like Seth and I pretty much have exactly the same shows, how I see it. And you know, so just let him know when you talk to him that I'd love for him to be on my show. I'm just kidding.
All right. Yeah. No, I will,
and vice versa. But yeah, I love Seth Meyers. So I love that there was like a little bit of a connection there where he was like, oh, I know Matt, and I'll make that introduction. So
he had me on to talk about sex criminals, but then asked about Hawkeye. It was really funny. Like,
of course.
He's a good dude. He's a super good dude.
Excellent. And speaking of email intros, I wanted to thank you on air for the lovely intro for Ed Brubaker. We had such a nice conversation, and what was kind of fun is I didn't expect, to vamp with him for an extra 30 minutes on his favorite TV shows, which he was very passionate about.
It sounds like Ed. That tracks.
Yeah, the tracks, yeah. And so that was a bonus. And of course, you being a film aficionado, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to also check in with you on what you've been watching and what kind of um has been, kind of on your mind. But also, you also got a special thanks in Shang-Chi,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah. I taught everybody how to kick.
Well, you could have brought me in for that, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to share that credit. I needed that credit
That's how you
all
are.
to
You just
myself.
hate sharing credit. That's what,
Well, I
that's
can, but
what that
now that
fraction's
I've got
for.
it, yeah. No, I thought everybody had to kick. It was great. Um, let's see, movies. Yeah. What have I been watching? Oh, early Alfred Hitchcock movies, like his late silent and early sound movies.
Okay.
That's sort of before he came to America.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
uh, uh, it's an interesting. He's such a visual storyteller. It's really interesting to see how he used sound as a pure storytelling element. And especially movies like Blackmail or Saboteur, I think. Is it Saboteur? Oh, Foreign Correspondent. Foreign Correspondent. And Saboteur. But yeah. So it's just interesting to watch him like that. I'm always looking for stuff to steal, right? So,
Mm.
and then like I watched a bunch of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, the old TV show, which I remember from my youth, but like sort of in the abstract. And watching them as an adult, they're really just kind of like Twilight Zones without the twist. It's like here's terrible people, they do something horrible happens, the end, and then Hitchcock comes out and makes fun of them, right? Which is pretty great. Like, oh, they were very stupid. Of course, they would get caught and punished. Here's a message from our sponsor.
Yeah, I like always in the older that they always had the filmmaker come out and explain things.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, right? Yeah, we have to make it clear that crime doesn't pay. So yeah, so that's kind of although my son and I over the summer watched a movie every night of summer vacation, and we're kind of picking it up now for Thanksgiving break. So we've been watching Christmas themed or holiday themed horror movies. We watched Gremlins and Black Christmas, and last night
Wow. How does
Rare
Gremlins
Export.
hold up? It's been a while.
Um, yeah, I remember it being the most tense and frightening. Like now I just laugh, like the live action cartoon nature of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty bold, but and it's more amusing to go back and look at like, oh my God, this movie had me so terrified when I was 9. This was
Right.
just
When
the
you
most
think about it,
intense.
right? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, so no, it's fun. I think Joe Dante is really underrated. I love watching him kind of work in that Spielberg idiom and still find ways to like bring all of his Roger Corman friends in and all that kind of stuff. So that was really fun. And we did Rare Exports last night, which is pretty terrific if you've never seen it.
I have not.
And I ordered a movie called Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. It's Japanese, and I almost don't want to say what it's about, but if you can see the trailer, and the trailer will melt your face off, and you will want to see it immediately. I'm
Oh
not
my
sure when it gets here, but I'm so excited to see Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes.
God. I'm a little bit afraid.
No,
I'm not
it
a
looks like
huge horror person,
no.
but then
This looks like a kind of science fiction comedy. All right, I'll tell you what
okay.
it's about.
Okay.
Guy, a guy discovers that the a monitor in his bedroom shows 2 minutes into the future, and a monitor down the hall from him shows 2 minutes in the past,
Okay.
and he puts them face to face, and
Wow. Okay.
it becomes about people who kind of create their own time loop that they are now stuck in. But so that's its own kind of mind blowy funny thing. But here's the thing: it's a done in one movie. It's all one take.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So it's all in one take, but at some point there's a bit where he's in front of the monitor. He's like, "This is me, and this is me 2 minutes in the future. This is me 4 minutes in the future. This is me 8 minutes in the future." I'm like, if it's all one take, how are they doing that? Anyway,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited. Yeah. Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes. Just watch the trailer.
I've got it written down, and I'm gonna link that for people so they can all get their faces melted off as well.
Right. You're gonna melt faces.
Yeah, I know. I always get really interesting. This is the thing. It's like I always know when I ask you, I'm not gonna get like the latest Marvel movie review. I'm gonna get something really obscure and fascinating, which is exactly why I wanted to ask you.
And I haven't, still not 100% comfortable like going back to theaters. So
Yeah.
like I really want to see the French Dispatch, and I really want to see
Yeah,
Licorice.
me too.
But yeah, I'm not quite a hundo on getting back into a theater quite yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, we are not as well quite comfortable. For my Kung Fu peeps, I rented a theater out for Shang Chi so we could do the Kung Fu thing, and so that was private, and my parents could go because I knew it would just be us, and we were like the first screening of the day. I don't even know if that makes a difference, but it made me feel a little more comfortable, even though they say they sanitize between. Like, it made me feel better, and so yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Did
so
you have students with you then too?
yeah, so they were more my instructor students, so they're my team. So I wanted to treat everyone to kind of a nice outing that wasn't like, hey, we're gonna work out for 3 hours kind of thing, but something relaxing. But also, since I wanted to support the film and also so many of the people in it that we were really rooting for, and just super excited to see it kind of come to life. And and it's a kung fu movie, so of course the kung fu people are gonna go see a kung fu movie.
Yeah. I regret not being able to see it with a
In the
crowd,
theater.
you
Yeah.
know. But yeah.
What'd you think?
That was great. That was terrific.
Okay.
I let's see, movie was great and charming and charismatic and made it look effortless. I thought Aquafina was hilarious. I love Michelle Yeoh in everything, and
Yeah.
that Tony Leung is back, and that Tony Leung is like so Tony Leung in that movie.
He is.
And I would make the argument that he's kind of one of the only villains in the Marvel canon who like you understand. There's sort of like lots of device based. I need the dibbly dab to do the flippity flu kind of stuff. But this was like, oh yeah, no, I think my wife is still alive and she's trapped in hell. I'm going to rescue her because I love her and she's the only good thing in the world, and I'm going to throw everything else away if it means getting back to her. Like oh, that's really clear. Like I understand that. My mom understands that. You don't need to know who Thanos is and what the gems do. That's like, oh no, he thinks his wife is behind that rock.
Yeah.
He's gonna get behind that rock. I loved that it was such a Tony Leung motive, such a character, such a Tony Leung character. You know what I mean? The only if only he could smoke.
Perfect. Yes, he's just perfect for it. Yeah.
If only let him smoke in the rain. That was the only in the movie. Is just have a cigarette and think
right
about
in the rain, and then like with a different what is it called, color scheme, like highly saturate that one shot.
Yeah, no, I thought it was all terrific, and I loved seeing the kind of some of the all-stars of kung fu cinema popping up in little roles here and there, and I love the little homages to his career, sort of all and to just kind of kung fu films, and how kind of each kind of big set piece fight had its own kind of flavor and style and backing, and I thought it was terrific. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. And not that I don't enjoy all Marvel films, and maybe I'm just biased because this is like literally the kung fu one, but it really is. It really, really is one of the top ones for me in terms of like I would rewatch that, right? I've enjoyed pretty much all the Marvel films, but there's only a few I would like rewatch, and that's definitely on the list for me. So yeah, we enjoyed it. My father enjoyed it. It was really cool to be able to see him enjoy something like that, especially the parts where they're speaking Mandarin. Even though he's more of a Cantonese speaker, it still like had this authenticity. That opening sequence with the Bakwa Tai Chi,
the very wuxia stuff.
Yeah, where they were like, it was very wuxia. Yeah, like where that's where he meets his wife, and of course she's well, who else would he fall in love with but somebody who can kick his ass? So I was just like, oh,
I've seen these movies. I know how this works. Right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
And then that
So
first like meaningful glance where it goes into slow motion and
yes.
they're like, that's so, all right. That was so great.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I had a friend of mine who talked about how just the little like just everybody taking their shoes off before going into the apartment, like how like that was you know hearing little stuff like that and like oh right it was
Yeah, it's very cultural.
oh, yeah, it's sort of like it has the balance kind of being a superhero movie and a kung fu movie, but also of its culture, right? And
Yes.
by its culture and for its culture, and sort of it's
Mhm.
always those little bits of verisimilitude that like, oh, whoa, whoa, right, that kind of stuff. Like that was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stuff I had no idea about. That was the stuff I had no thoughts about until I would hear and see it reminded me a little bit of again, just kind of like hearing from friends. It's different when you see it in a theater, but like I remember going to see Crouching Tiger
Mhm.
and like what a event that was, and to hear I would you could tell as a non-Cantonese nor Mandarin speaker when what was being missed or being like you maybe wouldn't get it from the subtitles,
Mhm.
but you could
Mhm.
tell by the audience reaction. Oh, whoa, and like you could hear like oh so there's this twist to that, there's a spin to that, it's not as
Yeah.
innocent as like that was cool to just to be in a majority audience of Chinese folks watching Crouching Tiger. It was like, oh great, you just get a clue in what's really going on here. Great, that's awesome,
Well,
thank you.
so much is lost in translation in
Of
any
course,
foreign film.
idiom
It's just
idiom
the
is
worst.
entirely
It's yeah, it's
implication
so
and poetry and like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that was
It's
cool. But yeah, hearing the little details are always what
yeah.
makes.
I I thought one of the really brilliant and fun things in Shang-Chi was also the blend of the modernism of like being Asian American and just like the scene in the car where she's like Shang and he was like no Shang and like
Yeah,
the tone and just like and then she's like you changed your name from Shang to Sean really you know and I'm like but in Chinese that is like vastly different like
yeah.
the sound makes it completely so different but like to a non-Chinese speaker it sounds exactly the same and that to me there was just some brilliance in that because it was very American but at the same time it was very Chinese so that was kind of fascinating to me.
I love that they steered into that with
Yeah.
Aquafina not really being able to like being able to understand, but not really being able to speak Chinese,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the whole conversation about her name and his monologue about they named me after a chicken dish and that that sort of like yeah, no, this is great. I was glad. I loved the parts in the movie that were not necessarily for me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
oh great, like yeah, that was cool. I love that it was such a this the yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it,
I'm so
and
glad. I'm so glad.
and
So
it had a lot to do. Right, it had a kind of
yeah,
Black Panther level
it did.
of things to service and I thought just from I
Yeah,
I'm
100%,
ultimately not the
100%.
judge with how some of those things worked out, but it was cool to hear from people and cool to see on screen. Like, oh wow, I have never thought about that before. I bet that like that was
Yeah,
love
really.
that stuff.
It was interesting of the timing too because it's like Shang-Chi could have come out at any point during this MCU. It could have come out at any time and it's like wow, it really came out right as, we're kind of not wrapping the pandemic, but after all the ill effects of the pandemic from the anti-Asian hate crimes and everything and it was like it's so they always say things are timely, anything that has to do with racial systemic racism or anything it's timely. I'm like, well, there's always it's there, so it's always going to be timely, but man, this one really was, especially from, the post effects of COVID and what happened with all of that and everything that we've been dealing with. So it really was timely. I know it's like so
Yeah.
cliche to say, but it certainly was. So
Yeah, I
um
know like they were making it in lockdown. Like they had started and then had to shut down for a little bit
crazy.
and then open back up a little bit. But like it was, I would imagine, impossible for everyone on that movie not to realize how there has never been a more important
Yeah, the
time
weight of it.
for the Chinese American Avenger, or the for
Yeah.
this, for the, like I think there was a probably a moral pressure, right? Like
Mhm.
it's time for this. It's long overdue. Like, so let's waste no time and
Yeah,
let's,
yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
there's a lot
that
of
was
weight for sure. So I was relieved because I often get disappointed and I always put my like hopes too high, but I was really, really, really pleased. So I want to
and
talk
I'm not
about
too looking
Adventureman
forward.
with you though.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
should.
because I didn't get to like delve in too many volumes yet, but I did get to start it finally. And when we spoke last time, you were just kind of getting it started, and I remember seeing a little
Right.
bit of the art, and I'm like, so beautiful, and it's also really fun and really smart, as is all your writing as usual. But you also managed to keep that going from the
Yeah,
pandemic, and
right, right, right.
yay for creativity, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that series.
Sure,
And
sure. Well, my writing on that is really inspired by Terry and Rachel Dodson. Terry puts so much life into those characters and how he draws them that it really changes how I write them. Like I'll get
uh
pages back, like they sort of, it's a kind of thing that only he and I and Rachel get to see, but the sort of how that all works together. But thank you, and yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and yeah, it's back kind of out now. Our second arc is kind of happening.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it was when Terry and I first worked together at Marvel, we realized that we really wanted to work together on something we had created because we could do it on our own terms and it
Yeah.
didn't have to be cranked out every 28 days, and so it gestated for a long time, but yeah, it's funny. It's always 100% joyful to write. I will always get stressed out and like, oh no, and then I start like, oh, it's just fun. It's always a joy. It's always a blast. It's always a delight. I love working on it. And then Terry turns in these magical pages and it feels even better and bigger and crazier and more wonderful. And um, yeah. So there's a hardcover that collects, I think the first, we're kind of trying a thing where the collections, there isn't, we're trying to blur the lines with arcs a little bit,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's entirely successful as a thought experiment. I just
Mm.
don't, but we wanted to kind of, it's a book about pulp fiction and adventure storytelling. So it's like, well, we want to end on cliffhangers, right? It's always got to be these
Mhm.
kind of, so, so our early issues were really huge. So it's a giant trade, a giant hardcover rather, just for like 4 issues, but it's like 6 issues worth of content, I think. But yeah, so then the second storyline is underway now, and it kind of, like I said, it all kind of smears out and smooths out, and it's a chance to explore all kinds of genre tropes from all kinds of parts of the kind of proto superhero comic world of pulp
Mhm.
fiction, and to update it and modernize it, reclaim some of it and disavow other parts of it. It's got an impossibly, pulp was impossibly racist and colonial in its thinking. So like, how do you reclaim that, and how do you take the parts that are good and make it something you don't have to apologize for or try, I'm sure there's a million things we'll learn and get wrong, but like it's not for lack of trying. And yeah, so and most of all, I've gone to some heavy places and some dark places, and so it's a chance to work in a kind of adventure like idiom
Mhm.
for everybody. It's sort of like, I remember I get asked about, you know, who do you think you should direct this? Like Pete Docter. I think this should be like a Pixar movie. Like if that has that kind of feeling of like there's something for everybody here, and you
Yeah.
can't say all ages without people thinking it's like, oh, it's a kid stuff. But like
Yeah.
I'm really trying to write like classic kind of like the comics I grew up with, where
Yeah,
like
it feels that
big
way.
broad
It feels very epic but classic at the
right.
same time, like, you know, modern. It's weird. It's got this modern epic classic feel. And so, but it's
Yeah,
a
no,
lot of fun and it's really like
yeah,
you said, the pages are beautiful.
yeah. It's meant to be a romp. It's meant to be fun and light
Mhm.
and exciting and not, then, and it really was a thing that I started out writing for my daughter, So in some way it was like, all right, so it's really got to be a thing that you can read to a kid, like it's got to be a thing that everybody, like Raiders, like you think of Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yes, it has a
that
very Raiders feel. Yeah, like that epic like
yeah,
adventure,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, where maybe
but
when you're
then it
eight,
can be a little gremlin scary sometimes.
right, right, right. So when you're 8, you're 9, it's like, oh my God, it's so, but then, but
Yeah, there's a dark character, it's
yeah, yeah,
shadowy.
yeah, but so yeah, it's yeah, and now it's funny, the arc that's coming out now is all set during Christmas, so it's all very like seasonally appropriate, which is very, very
Mhm.
funny. Um, but
You're
yeah, it
so
turns out,
seasonal this year.
well, yeah, I was writing it around this time last year, right? So it was like,
Right,
oh, it's
right,
Christmas time. I guess I'm writing about Christmas. It just so happened that here we are. So it worked out well.
right. And now I'm sensing a theme. I'm like, I guess you and I have to talk every year, like before Christmas,
Christmas
because
time.
like it's our thing, in addition to the other times. But I'm realizing that we kind of end up talking probably around the holidays all the
That's all
time.
right. Thanksgiving. All right, we'll do it every Thanksgiving.
I am thankful for Matt
Yeah,
Freeman.
gratitude and thanks, right? I do it.
um, and again, I wanted to congratulate you on the Eisner wins, and I mean, is that like? I know you've won Eisners before and Harveys and I mean, does it
It's
ever
never,
get old? Not old, but I mean, is it still shocking and
yes,
exciting and like, oh my gosh?
deeply, sincerely, especially for a book like Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
It was incredibly unexpected. Um,
Okay.
yeah, no, it was nuts. It's great, amazing, but like,
Yeah, not one, but two also, right?
yeah, that was the other thing too. Is like, even if you start to think about it rationally, you think, well, we'll probably split the vote then, right? But like, that turned out no. It was great. It was. I was thrilled that I could share that with Steve, and who is just the funniest, best collaborator, and such a pure storyteller, that he made my nonsense make sense, and clearly it at least resonated with the Eisner judges and with the Eisner book. So that was really cool. But yeah, it was nuts, bonkers, completely unexpected, entirely unexpected, and entirely a delight.
Yeah, I really look forward. I've always looked forward to the Eisners in the past because I go, okay, what is it that I need to read? And I
Mm-hmm,
don't
yeah,
just read the winners. I read like everyone who's nominated because obviously I'm like, okay, great. This is where I get my like awareness. That's where I get my comics news kind of thing. Like in addition to asking my friend who owns a comic book shop, Paper Asylum in Boston, I'm like, all right, well, what do I read next?
right, right.
But over the years, it's been awesome because I know a lot of the winners now, and it's so exciting to like go, hey, congrats on the nomination, or hey, congrats on the Eisner. So that night I was like, oh my gosh, Stan Sakai, oh my gosh, so and
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
just so cool that now fast forward all this time, I never would have thought I'd be talking frequently to a lot of the people that I've just drooling over as I'm reading and excited to read their stuff. So I feel very, very privileged and honored to, be able to have these conversations with creators like yourself.
You make
And
it
of
very
course, our pal Greg.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, well, I thought was Rob this year. I thought Greg had a nomination this year. That was a tremendous piece of work. Not Rob,
Yes.
but I was, no disrespect to the winner.
Right.
I voted differently. I thought Greg's story was terrific this year.
I did
Um,
as well. And I also your arc in that same series was
oh, thank you,
awesome as
thank
well.
you. I got to draw Batman in that. That's all that matters. Uh, and one of the panels, he's holding up a piece of art that Joker made in art therapy, and
Okay.
I drew it.
Oh, you drew that one. Of
I get
course
to
you
now
did.
claim to be both the writer and artist of Batman, which I'm very
Yeah,
excited.
of course. There
Very
you
excited.
go. There, that's it. You can claim it, and that's all that matters.
Yep,
And it's
that's
there,
true.
and it's in
True.
print, and it's proof.
True. I wrote and drew
I
that.
love that art therapy, Batman.
Yeah, writer and artist of Batman. That's me. Um, but yeah, no, it's always crazy, and like, we had a very, have sort of one that had like a kind of big year, and then it was just easy to think like, well, that's it. There's a lot of worthwhile folks, like, sure,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's so much of it is it's voted by your peers, like that
Yeah.
means something, and like, um it's just as somebody who has read comics their whole life, like it's never not amazing to have my name and Will Eisner's name on the same thing, you know. So it's
Yeah.
pretty great. And for
And
such an insane, ridiculous thing like Jimmy Olsen, just makes it all the better.
yeah, that I can see how that felt very special. And that's another thing for our listeners, because we have a lot of comic fan
Mhm.
followers now ever since I started having esteemed guests like yourself on.
Mhm.
How does that work? Like who gets invited to vote, and how do the
You have
Eisners
to
work
working
exactly?
professionals in that in the field. Like it is basically, if you make your living making comics, or you make comics, you are allowed to vote.
Mhm. Okay.
That's yeah, yeah. So it's all
But
voted
there's
by
is
other
it
pros.
doesn't it seems like though not everyone who makes comics can really is there like kind of a
Yeah,
criteria?
I mean, as I recall, you just have to like submit like just
Hmm.
proof of work. Like it's not like you have to be doing only comics, but like, do you make comics? Like send it, show us, and
Okay,
send us the
okay,
thing.
and
And
then
that,
you get in. And
as far
do
as I
they?
know, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
The
mean, you're never gonna get kicked out because you're Matt Fraction at this
see,
point,
I
but I
keep
would
trying.
imagine someone new would say, "Oh, are you still
I
creating? You have to show like credentials and
Yeah,
stuff."
I mean, I
Like,
think you just have to show the work, and even
okay.
now, like the webcomic stuff is so
Oh
prevalent and
yeah.
so prominent. Like I think it's, like, just show us your work and show that you work in the field, and
Hmm.
well, you're welcome to it. At least that's what
Yeah.
the rules used to be. I don't know if it's changed, but that's what it used to
Right,
be.
right. Well, and speaking of that, because
Hmm?
you've obviously been doing this such a long time, and you are at a point in your career where you kind of get to collaborate with who you'd like, and I think you get to kind of pick the projects that you like. And you spoke a little bit earlier about, okay, we're in the grind at the, at one of the bigger publications, and you have a certain deadline and all of that. It's like, um, you know, what's kind of next on the horizon for you? Like, do you enjoy just kind of still doing what you're doing in terms of like working on your Adventuremans and doing your
Yeah,
comics on your own time? Also, maybe dabbling in film and TV writing and things like
right.
that. Like, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, Adventureman is ongoing. I've written some new Casanova stuff that Gabrielle and Fabio have and are working on. And yeah, and I've actually been in a writer's room, and will be for the next little while, for a show that I co-created. Um, and that's been weird because it's, the first time in like 15 years that I've had a job where I have to be somewhere at a certain time and there's a bunch of other people there. I forgot what that's like. It's literally been, 15 years. So
Right.
um,
You're like, there's
yeah,
other
but now it's
humans.
weird. It's real weird. And yeah, but I've been like living in California Monday through Friday,
Wow.
coming home on the weekends. So it's it's been exciting and new, but it is a TV show. So like it's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm not doing. I have a couple of things kind of slow cooking, but like not in any pressure. Like I didn't feel right cooking up stuff, even though the kids are back in school. Like I didn't know. I don't know what my deadlines are going to be like. I don't know
Hmm.
what my bandwidth is going to be, and how much I'll be able to do. So everything is just kind of been like, comic wise, is kind of developing while I'm working on this show.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I know you can't talk about the show, but is it your first time kind of in a writer's room in this capacity?
it's in this capacity, yeah, as like a co-creator, kind of executive producer type. Yeah, I've
Wow.
been in rooms before, but it's always been just like for a week. Like it's always been
Okay.
as like
For a one-off
a brief
project
moment,
or
or
one episode or
yeah,
okay.
like or or it's consulting. You show up and you listen for a week and you talk about
Mhm.
stuff. But like in terms of like a Monday through Friday for 24 weeks, like this is
Wow.
yeah.
This is very exciting, and I
Yeah,
know our
and,
listeners are
and
like, "What is it?" But I know that you will come back and talk about it when it is
well,
time.
it's not a Marvel thing, and I think they're gonna. It should be announced. Last I heard, they want to announce it at the beginning of December.
Okay.
So maybe by the time you're hearing this, it'll have been out, or will be out shortly. But who knows? The things are weird. Everything, everything is
Holly
messed.
weird.
Holly weird. Yeah, yeah. And the supply chain. Who knows? Supply chain issues. Who knows when things are going to happen anymore? But should be announced soon. But yeah, so that's been crazy, and like the culmination of like 3 years of consistent
Wow.
development on this thing, and now it's released to more real, or at least writing scripts. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you're in like phase two, and then when you go into production, you're going to be like, "Wow, this is really crazy, and it's really weird." And then it comes out, and post.
Yeah.
But that collaboration, because you are obviously as a comic creator always collaborating, but I would imagine there's such a difference of sitting in a writer's room and like doing that grind versus I'm in my castle, I do my pages, and then I
Right.
get a
Right.
call or I get my pages from, back and forth between your collaborator. How does that translate for you, kind of being in a writer's room or doing comic creation? Is it just totally a different animal, so it doesn't really have any
Yes.
relation?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's a pretty perceptive. Yeah. I mean, it's quite collaborative. It reminds me a little bit of like what Marvel editorial retreats felt like, where sort of a bunch of writers sitting around talking about their stories. Reminds me a lot of my time in advertising and kind of creative director kind of stuff, where you're talking about how to do a thing, and also like I have been. It feels a little bit like training. Like it feels a little bit like distance running, like training for like a long distance kind of running race. Because I like the first couple weeks was like exhausted. And it's just like it's just keeping so much stuff in your head all day. And I'm less and less tired, but I'm also aware of like I kind of get a little punchy by the end of the day, and just like some I'm aware of how I've really been in a room by myself for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right, like I'm aware of that, but I'm with a terrific, an amazing co-creator, and a terrific group of writers that are tremendously experienced and know what they're doing. So they're all at least acting very forgiving of my nonsense. So that's cool. But no, I mean it's lateral problem solving with a lot of smart, good people, and I might do it quicker, but I don't know that I would necessarily do it better. You just have a bunch of minds working and problem solving, and someone's going to come up with something more clever and more interesting and better than you would have had, or someone will have had an experience that influences that. Like right, it's very much stronger for the group process of it all.
Hmm.
Um, um, and that's the coolest thing to see how it grows and takes shape in ways that I didn't anticipate or couldn't expect, but that are infinitely better and more interesting because of it. Like that's super cool. Um, and like comics, it is a collaborative medium, and like the best answer should win, not who answered. You know, so I don't have a lot of ego in there. I don't feel defensive or any of that. It's just kind of learning how this all kind of works together, and how we all work together. It's I think, yeah, we're just done with week 4. So it's still pretty new, but like
Hmm.
it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, like anything else, just having the right collaborators is the key, because
It makes a big
it
difference.
could probably be a nightmare otherwise, being stuck in a room for 24 weeks with people.
Yeah,
So this sounds pretty awesome.
I've heard some real horror stories. This is not that. This is a
Right.
very, very, very supportive, very cool kind of place. So
Yeah.
so it's a
Oh my
joy.
gosh.
It doesn't feel like working. As tired as I am at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. I mean, and just the travel grind though must be kind of rough. And then of course you must be on like FaceTime every night with Kelly Sue and the kids.
Pretty much. Yeah.
At least you're on
Yeah.
the same time zone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know if I can keep up getting home every weekend. Um, just because like this past week I really felt it. This last week was the first time I
Hmm.
really felt like I gotta like I'm not sleeping really well. I never sleep well, but I'm sleeping particularly shitty right now. So
Mm.
this is like I'm feeling this is a perfect week for holidays, like rest up and recuperate
Yeah.
and
Ugh,
get
I
myself
feel
back
you
on.
because I have sleep issues as well. So we can talk about that off air and compare
Yeah,
some
yeah, like
healing notes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I hate to hear that. But as always, it is a pleasure to talk to you, and our hour goes
I
by
can't
so
believe
quickly.
I
I
can't believe
know.
it. I can't believe it. That's crazy.
I know, I know. And also our year went by quickly because I
Oh, for sure.
looked and I was like, yeah, was Sex Criminals was the last time we spoke when that kind of wrapped, and then
Yeah, the
before that we had spoken a few times. So yeah, this has been too long.
crazy, crazy,
Time
crazy.
flies, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh. So like I said, and our listeners are going to be expecting it now that you're going to have to come back and talk about
yeah,
your unofficial or your official project that's unofficially announced,
yeah, yeah.
and more comic things
Oh,
and
yeah.
all of
Oh,
that with Mr. Matt Fraction. So thank you so much for talking to me. I miss talking to you, and it's always a pleasure.
yeah, it was the fastest hour of my year. So, yeah.
Oh, you're too kind. All right. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.